welcome you to our GoToMeeting judge training for the 2016 Wisconsin Engineering Design Competition. If you are not speaking, if you would be so kind as to please mute yourself until opportunity for questions, that would help with some of the static feedback. My name is Patricia Dibert, and I am the administrator of this competition. I am on staff here at Milwaukee School of Engineering, where I serve as a STEM coordinator for the university. I also work as an affiliate associate director for Project Lead the Way. MSOE is the affiliate university for Project Lead the Way in the state of Wisconsin. My role as a director is to oversee the biomedical science and launch programs for PLTW. This is the third year that I have been asked to serve as the administrator of this competition. PLTW is the nation's leading provider of K-12 STEM curriculum. PLTW is an activity, problem, project-based curriculum where students drive their learning. Teachers serve as facilitators and guides in the process. Students learn that struggle is a part of the learning process and that failure is not seen as a stumbling block, but as an opportunity to try again. There are 5 programs of study. Launch is the elementary curriculum where students learn the design process alongside reading, writing, and arithmetic. Gateway is the middle school program which supports 2 foundation courses, design and modeling, and automation robotics. There are multiple specialization units to augment the science and technical education curricula. At the high school level, there are 3 threads: the traditional and well-established engineering thread, the biomedical science thread, and more recently, the computer science thread. PLTW high school students have the opportunity to take progressive courses in a particular thread along with college preparatory math and science. Each of the high school threads culminates in a capstone experience where students identify a unique problem and then work with their team and industry mentors using the engineer design process to establish a solution. Students document their work in the Innovation Portal. The Innovation Portal is not unique to PLTW. Elliot will share more of the history in a moment. Any student can use the Innovation Portal for any project. The value is that the Innovation Portal provides a step-by-step documentation process that facilitates a design solution. And that brings us to our judge expertise at the table. I want to personally thank you for volunteering to be a judge in our competition for high school students across the state of Wisconsin. The competition is open to all biomedical innovation and engineering, design, and development students in the state of Wisconsin who are currently enrolled in one of these capstone courses. The impetus behind this competition is to give students the opportunity to move yet another high school project from a box in the attic to an opportunity to have their work reviewed by a panel of experts. That's you. And the possibility of having a feasibility study completed on their portfolio to determine the marketability of their design solution. This competition has been generously financed by Rockwell Automation and supported by the Small Business Development Center and Wisconsin Innovation Service Center, housed at UW-Whitewater under leadership of Mr. Ronald Bud Gayhart. Milwaukee School of Engineering has provided time in my schedule to orchestrate the administrative support needed to offer this competition to our PLTW network. This year we have over 140 students registered representing 24 schools. That translates into the potential of 46 portfolios if all registered teams submit. I currently have 57 judges. For your information, today's training will be recorded and made available on YouTube for future reference. And I'll send that link out to you as soon as Elliot sends it to me. With us today, we have Mr. Elliot Mork from the PLTW National Office. Elliot will walk us through the scoring rubric, which is embedded in the innovation portal where students submitted their portfolios. The judging window is June 8th through July 15th. I would ask that you judge the portfolios based on how well the team has completed the elements of the rubric, not on the idea or problem. How well students can document the design process of their problem solution is what I'm asking you to judge. Connected to your evaluation of how well a student has documented their work is scholarship money, as well as the opportunity for a feasibility study by the Wisconsin Innovation Center. The competition is based on documentation, not idea. This reflects how well the student team understands the documentation process. Upon completion of your work, I will tabulate the results and personally contact the top teams. This year, we will be recognizing our winners at a special ceremony on August 3rd. Again, thank you for volunteering your time. Without further ado, let me turn control over to Elliot.
All right, thank you, Patricia. I want to check a few things before I get going. The first is that I successfully unmuted, and the second is that you know where the chat box is in the GoToMeeting interface. So if you could, just go ahead and send me a message in the chat box to let me know that I unmuted and you found the chat box. That'll be a great opportunity to put chats into that box if you have a question while we're ongoing. Thank you, Jay. I saw the chat. So if you have any questions during the course of the training, you can either put your question in there or unmute yourself and ask it if you have it. And I'll also be pausing once in a while for questions and then available after the training to address any one-on-one questions that may be more specific. During the course of the call, if you are not speaking, I would ask you to go on mute. I think while Patricia was speaking, I muted a few people. Feel free to unmute yourself. That's just to avoid feedback through 18 lines and background noise with 18 people. So let's go ahead and get going. As Patricia already mentioned, discussed, the recording will be made available afterwards. It'll just take me a little bit of time to process the video and then get it uploaded to YouTube. And then you should have a link if you need this video as a reference, maybe in a week or two when you start judging and want to go back to a certain point and maybe fast forward to write the section that you want to go back to. So the steps we're going to go through during the training are laid out here on this slide. The first two, hopefully you've already completed. To visit the Innovation Portal and use the Innovation Portal, you have to have a fairly updated internet browser on your computer. The Innovation Portal will automatically detect what browser you're using the first time you come to it, but it's also not a bad idea to go to whatismybrowser.com and make sure your browser is up to date. The second step, which most of you have already completed as well, is to create your own Innovation Portal account and then getting it connected to the competition. So that's kind of two steps within one. Every Innovation Portal account is the same and free, so you'll be creating the same type of account that students have created. There's no special judge account. But then you will manage some permissions once you create the account with an invitation from Patricia for this specific competition. And I'll go into a little bit more depth on that, but hopefully you've already completed that. The next step that I'll cover is an online overview of how the online system works. Just kind of what the Innovation Portal is doing and what is your role within it as a judge. I'll show you how to access the portfolios assigned to you. A little bit about the rubric that you'll be using to evaluate them. You have a very important but pretty difficult task ahead of you as a judge to only see a subset of portfolios that are assigned to you within one competition and then evaluate them. As a tool, the rubric is a validated tool to do that evaluation. And I know on a virtual platform, it can be a little bit difficult to do this because you're not, like in a science fair, you're not able to walk around the room and kind of judge the quality of all the different student submissions and then grade the ones that you're assigned accordingly. So what we've done is created this rubric and provide student examples That'll be showing you how to access, so that to help you calibrate yourself to what the score for a specific rubric should be. It's somewhat difficult to make two judges, both judging the same portfolio virtually, kind of come up with the same score, but the rubric has been shown to do that pretty well. So just as long as you lean on the rubric, you should have a pretty consistent scoring. I'll show you how to access that rubric, and I'll show you how to access the scored examples, as I was talking about, the resource you have to set the baseline and calibrate yourself, if you'd like to use that as a resource. And then I'll show you how to submit your scores to Patricia, and judging is going to be due June 15th, and that's when she needs all the scores together and submitted and finalized. And if you have any questions during the judging process, especially anything technical like creating an account or getting account permissions and stuff, you can email Patricia, but you can also email me, emork@pl2w.org. Any questions that are more Innovation Portal specific or interface specific, I can answer, or you can send everything to Patricia and she can forward those on to me as well. But just another resource to you as a judge. So I kind of covered this a little bit, but this is how to get connected to the competition. The first step is to create an account, and again, there's no special account for judges. It's every account is the same. The second step is to send the exact email address that you used to create the account to Patricia, so she can send an email out to you to invite you to that competition. So then we got a question, June 15th or July 15th? I believe it is June 15th. Is that correct, Patricia? Oh, maybe we can verify a little bit later. So create the account and then report the email address, and then you should receive an invitation through email and through a notification system within the Innovation Portal that I can show you. You should be able to click that link and accept it automatically in your email. We have had some confusion with judges because it's a one-time click link. So if you click it the second time, you'll receive a 404 error and not be able to load it. But what that means is you've already accepted the invitation. So if you get a 404 error after clicking a link to the Innovation Portal, you've probably already done that step and been invited and accepted to be a judge in a competition. And I can show you how to verify that you actually are a judge in the competition when we go into click-through here. And then that's the accepting stage, is either click on that email, and again, it's a one-time click email, or you can log into the Innovation Portal and accept it within the Innovation Portal. So a little bit about the competition and how it's actually being administered through the Innovation Portal. The competition administrator is Patricia here, kind of handling the communication and back and forth between students and recruiting a team of judges, which is yourself. The steps that the students go through, the first one is to register for the competition, and this is just to register interest. So they did that a little bit earlier. They registered and told Patricia, hey, I'm interested in doing this competition, which then gives her an idea of how many judges to recruit. You typically want about the same number of judges as submissions, because we want each judge to have between 3 to 5 reviews to do. And then we want each portfolio reviewed at least 3 times, just for consistency's sake with grading. The second stage, which is happening, we're in that right now, is the submission phase. So this is when students have been, after they register, they can work on their portfolios in their capstone design classes, and then once they're finalized, they can submit into the competition, take those portfolios and actually put them in the bucket of the competition. The deadline will be June 5th for students to get those into the competition, and then so they're sending into the competition. At that point, Patricia has access to them, but there's going to be quite a few of them. We have competitions ranging from several hundred submissions to about a dozen submissions is kind of the size, to give you an idea of scale. Then while the students are doing submissions, she's been recruiting judges, and that's you on this call right now, to take those portfolios. But at this point, you don't have access to them because they're in the competition and you haven't been assigned any. So sometime after June 5th, and I believe about June 8th, you'll receive the portfolios into your account as a review. You'll be asked to review somewhere between 3 and 5 portfolios. Those 3 to 5 portfolios take about 3 to 5 hours to evaluate. The first one you evaluate will be a little bit more as you learn the rubric and read through those resources as well as the student resources. And then each portfolio review after that, about 1 hour per portfolio, and that will vary somewhat significantly depending on what students actually load into their portfolio. Some of them take a little bit longer, some a little bit less, but average about an hour each is what judges have told us in the past. So when the competition has all the submissions, you receive yours, but we're going to distribute them out to all judges. And that happens in an automated random fashion by clicking a button on the innovation portal. We'll designate how many reviews we want each portfolio to get, and then the innovation portal will automatically assign out submission to judges. So you'll receive those to you. You'll have a window to do that evaluation of the portfolios, and then you will send those scores back to the competition administrator here. So at some point you have to commit to the scores and send them back. Going back to that science fair analogy, it's like you get a little bit of time to judge it, and then you mail in the forms a little bit later with the actual scores to the competition administrator. So moving ahead a little bit to the innovation portal and what students are experiencing and the kind of the basic functionality of the innovation portal to give you some perspective on what students have done. The innovation portal is a engineering design portfolio creation tool. Competitions are only one aspect of that on the innovation portal. So anyone can create a portfolio. It's a free account, and you don't have to be in PLTW to utilize the innovation portal. And actually we have quite a few first-year engineering educators at the college level utilizing the innovation portal to do engineering design work at the college level. I think it's our second highest use case actually on the innovation portal. So anyone can create an account for free. You don't have to be in PLTW. Competitions may have requirements within their competition to submit the portfolio. Like in Wisconsin, you have to be in Wisconsin. And you have to be enrolled in a PLTW capstone course. Those are not the same requirements as just creating an account and utilizing the tool of the innovation portal. But anyway, students create a portfolio. They can invite project partners. Those project partners can be other students that they're working with. They can be in the same class, or they could be even in a different class if they wanted to, because it's all virtual. And they can share permissions to either collaborate or to also co-own that portfolio. They can also share viewing rights, which typically students do with their teacher. So the teacher can track their progress and kind of make sure that work is being done and work is being uploaded into the portfolio. One of the neater things you can do as well is actually ask for reviews on the innovation portal of your portfolio. So students may have sent out review requests to project mentors in a virtual fashion, and so they could have reviews done on their portfolio even before submitting it to a competition. So the same review that you will be doing and submitting to the competition, students have the opportunity to send out those reviews to project mentors that then can give them feedback to refine their portfolio before submitting to a competition. And so once they've done all that work and refined the process with their mentors, they can actually take a copy of their portfolio and submit it into the competition as a submission. And so another pretty neat thing about it being virtual is you could submit to multiple competitions. The Wisconsin competition is a little bit later in the year than most competitions, but so if students worked ahead, they could have submitted to quite a few other competitions that have occurred on the innovation portal this spring. I believe there's one international competition that kicks off in December, and then really has two phases, in one in January and in February. So they could have submitted to that if they were done in advance. You can create as many portfolios as you want as a user on the innovation portal, and those portfolios track with you. As long as you keep the account, you'll have access to those portfolios. We've had We've had students print out portfolios and use them as like a portfolio tool during submission to admission to colleges. So we've seen that happen. And then this slide I'm going to address after we go through the click-through, and I want to pause for any questions to see if there's any questions so far about kind of giving you the overview for how you fit as a judge in this whole process. So I'll pause for questions real quick. All right, and again, if you have any other questions, you don't have to wait for a pause. You can put it in the chat window, or we can address it at the end when we pause here. So this is the screen on the innovation portal that you'll get to once you log into your account. The only difference being all these blocks down here are portfolios I have on this account. I have access to quite a bit of portfolios, and I've created a lot of portfolios just because for training purposes and for demonstration purposes, whenever I go to a conference and display it, that I'm creating a portfolio. So I have 46, but you'll have 0 unless you've created one in your account. So your screen will look different. There'll be a kind of an orange color behind there, and then a question asking you if you want to create a portfolio. The reason it's asking you to create a portfolio is because most users on the Innovation Portal want to create portfolios. You as a judge, however, that's not your main use case, so you'll have to use this left sidebar. On the left here, we're in My Portfolios originally when we log in, but the first thing I want to draw your attention to is the My Notifications here on the left-hand side. This is where every notification lives that you get on the Innovation Portal. So you may get emails with these notifications as well, but you can also come here to take a look at the notifications. There's at least 2 types of notifications that you'll receive as a judge. This one you have not seen yet because this is a notification that you've been assigned a review. So this one just lets me know the account has been assigned to review the submission. This is the name of the portfolio that students created. And then for the opportunity, which is kind of the same as a competition. So this is a training example competition, which is I use this account for to do these training sessions. If we scroll down, we can take a look at a different notification. This is an opportunity invitation to be a judge. So hopefully you've already accepted something like this. And again, you could have clicked on the email notification, or you can come here to click accept as well. I see a question, will we get an email notification too? And I believe you will, unless you have your firewall, your email is blocking from the Innovation Portal, you should receive an email for every notification as well. We have about 2% of users have issues getting emails from the Innovation Portal, and that typically is with email addresses that are edu with an IT department that starts blocking Innovation Portal emails. But most of you should get invitation emails, and if you've received emails from the Innovation Portal, then you will receive these notifications as well. So that's the notifications. The place where the competitions live is this tab called Opportunities. It's not named Competitions because there's other things in here other than competitions, like the like access to do those reviews for the Wisconsin Innovative Service Center. Sharing the portfolios, access to those are within there. Oh, and I need to do something really quick here. We can see all the live competitions here that are current, and that means that the students are in the creation phase of their portfolios. And so we can see the Wisconsin competition because students are currently working on that here. Excuse me just a moment. I need to switch this training example. It's in the wrong place right now. Are portfolios assigned according to judge discipline or randomly? Portfolios are assigned randomly. That's an automated system that is completely random. There is the functionality allowed for manual assignments, but everything will be initially done automated, and then if there's any issues after that, it can be done manually as well. Oh, and I need to change. Excuse me for just a minute. I was preparing for this training session and moved this training example competition earlier today. All right, there we go. So these are the current competitions. We have the Minnesota competition and Wisconsin competition still current. These are the 2 latest competitions this spring that are closing that we have on the Innovation Portal. I want to bring your attention to the current and the past tabs up here in the top left. We're currently in the current section, but we're going to go into the past. So we see the Wisconsin competition here, which we will find in the past section after the student submission date is passed. So right now we see the 2015 Wisconsin design competition. And this one will disappear and will be replaced with the 2016 competition as soon as students are done and the submission window has passed. So you'll be finding this competition here. So I'm going to click on this training example competition, but in your case, once you receive the reviews notifications, you'll be clicking on and finding the Wisconsin competition in the same past button here. But for the purposes of the training demonstration, I'm going to go into this training example competition. So the first page we get is the view the competition. So if you click on the 2016, which you could do that right now, you can read all the information about the competition. All the prizes, all the terms and conditions, all the windows, the registration window, the submission window, and all that. If you're curious to get more information about the competition, it's a great place to read up on the competition. And if you'll notice, we have this blue bar on top. You do not have that blue bar if you do not have special access in this competition. So I know that I'm a judge for this training example competition because I have this blue bar and that says reviews on top. And that is one way to verify that you are a judge in a competition. The first thing you want to do when you get to this page to access your reviews is click this reviews button here. And then once this loads, we'll see every single review that has been assigned to me as a judge. We see our name up here, account email on the right, and then completed reviews. So currently I have 14 completed of 21. You'll have much fewer. And again, you'll probably have somewhere between 3 and 5 portfolios assigned to you as a judge. The 14 out of 21 for me is just I have 21 judge trainings scheduled this spring, and I've completed 14 of them so far because we complete 1 portfolio per training. So each review is down here in a box. We can look at this new carbon anode one here, and we can see the status is complete. That means I've already completed this this portfolio review, this review here. So we're going to scroll down until we find one that is active. A lot of these are complete already. Here's an active, reach a tool. So let's go into this one and we can view the student work. So this portfolio, we're on the cover page right now. We have a new right-hand sidebar for navigation here. The blue is highlighted, so that means we're on the cover page here. Students typically use the cover page for introducing themselves or an executive summary. Looks like these team members kind of an introduction and a really quick summary of the problem statement with a diagram of their problem as well. So there's no content to actually evaluate on the cover page. I like to make the analogy that this is the portfolio is like a 3-ring binder almost. It was built on that theory, and the cover page is like the plastic insert on the front of the page. So there's no real content, but it's there. And then the letters, the 14 elements, are along the right-hand side, and those are like tabs on that 3-ring binder to let you flip right to that content. So let's go ahead and click on A to go into this content here, flip to that tab in the 3-ring binder. And what we can see here is the student content that's actually been loaded here. So you can scroll down 2 different ways. I have a wheel on my mouse you can scroll down, or there's a scroll bar. There's a scroll bar on the right-hand side that you can drag down and view all of the student work. There can be a bunch of different types of content loaded here. There can be text, there can be links, there can be videos, there can be images. So students can be kind of creative. They're almost building their own web page with the and loading their content here to do that. And we have a question. Let's see. Is there a lockout feature until the project is complete? Any risk of starting to evaluate a partially completed portfolio? There is no risk starting to evaluate in complete portfolio. The reason you don't get submissions at this time yet is because students have to commit and submit their portfolio, and that creates a submission. And so you're evaluating a submission, and they can still keep changing their portfolio, but it won't change the submission that they sent into the competition. So once you receive the notification that you have a review to do, that submission of the review will not change at all. All the content will remain static, and you will evaluate just that content as it is at that moment that they submit. Good question, though. All right, going back to the rubric. So I went real quickly through the 14 different letters here on the right-hand side. On the right-hand side, we have the EDPPSR rubric embedded, EDPPSR. What the rubric is a collaboration among engineering educators and researchers that saw a problem that we didn't have a standardized engineering design process or rubric. If it's a science fair, there's a pretty standardized scientific process out there and evaluation tools associated with it. So there's a pretty big problem with engineering design work that there wasn't that same standardized rubric. So what they saw that problem, and what happened was the result of that problem, or the way to fix it, was a 3-year NSF grant that with a lead researcher from University of Maryland, and what they came up with, and working with a rubric specialist as well, what they came up with, they brought some engineering educators together and created a rubric altogether to evaluate engineering design work. And it's all about the process. It's not about the idea or the quality or the result, but what we're evaluating is the ability for students to step through a process that's defined. And so that's what this rubric is designed to do. A bunch of different elements. The first one, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention there's, so the rubric was created and it's remained static for a few years now, which is great for looking back and looking at the validity of it. And what we found is there's a pretty high level of confidence of validity if judges utilize the rubric and then judge student content based on the rubric here. There's ongoing research to define exactly the agreement between judges and what training resources contribute to more agreement among judges. And then which elements have more agreement and which have less, but there's ongoing current research for that right now. Just for your information there. Each element has a couple different components. The first one I like to point out are the reflective questions. These questions here, when I'm talking to teachers or students, I like to call this the checklist. This is a checklist of things to make sure the student supplies these inside this element. For you as a judge, what it gives you is kind of a scope for this element. What type of content should be in this element and what type of content should not. So it gives you the scope of what you're evaluating only within element A. So you can read those to give yourself an idea of what kind of content will be covered in this element. Pretty good summary there. The next thing you have is actually the rubric or the scale with scores. So right now it's 5, and we have this text down here. This is what defines a score of 5. It's not a 5 is not a perfect score, but a 5 is what this text describes. And so all those engineering educators and researchers came together and wrote these and defined what a 5 score should be. They wrote what a 4, a 3, a 2, a 1, and a 0 is. And they designed that language to have the equal spacing between each score. So the space between a 0 and a 1 and a 1 and a 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5 should be the same space, kind of like a staircase. If you've ever used a staircase that have different heights on the staircase, you probably trip because you need a even spacing on it. So it's similar to a staircase in that way. It's not similar to a staircase in the way that it is linear, but it is not discrete. And what I mean by that is that to receive a score of 3, the students do not need to meet all requirements in here defined by what a 3 is. So there's a score of 2 is defined. So to receive a score of 3, you at least need to hit this score of 2. But if students are between a 2 and a 3, your job as an evaluator, and a somewhat difficult job to do, is determine what is it closer to. Is it closer to a 2 or is it closer to a 3? And so that's why that's what I mean by it doesn't need to meet all requirements of a 3. It needs to just be closer to a 3 than a 2 to receive that score. So that's getting a little bit into the weeds, but that's important information to make sure that your evaluation is similar to another judge separate from you, and you don't have the opportunity to talk. So that's the level of care that the rubric was written with. The last piece of information you have as a judge is the scored element examples. And this is really important, and judges asked for this last year. And if you judged I don't think anyone judged last year in this group, but this was a thing that we've really done in the past year, is flesh this out. And what this is a resource to you as a judge to see actual student content and then how expert evaluators have evaluated that and their thought process. Before I click this link, I want you to direct your attention to the upper left-hand part of my screen here. So we open up a new tab, and what we're looking at now is a PDF document. Your computer and browser may handle that a little bit differently. It may open up a new tab and then not go to it, or it may download a PDF document and it may behave like mine. Regardless of what happens, you still have access to element A here. So if you click over to this other tab, you still have that same window that we had, and we can look at the rubric A here. But if we click back over, we can see here this resource you have available to you. These two paragraphs are the thought process, the combined thought process behind those engineering educators and researchers into why this student portfolio received a score of 3. And so this gives you some more insight into why it received a 3, not a 4, and why it received a 3 and not a 2. And if it's close to a 4 or a 3, then it'll mention it here. So I think this one, some evaluators call this a score of 4, but then consensus went to 3. So it's not an exact science, but you can really dive into the thought process for the scoring with this resource. We have the commentary up above, and then we have the entire rubric, 5 components and 14 elements listed here, and the element that it's relevant to highlighted. So this is element A. Then within element A, we have all the text that we are reviewing on the rubric here, and we have a score of 3 highlighted because this portfolio received a score of 3. If we scroll down a little bit more, we can see the actual student content. So this is content, a PDF printout of the online content that students loaded into the innovation portal. So pretty powerful. You can look at the commentary that the evaluators wrote and then refer to the actual student content that they're referring to. This specific portfolio, I think, was about LED traffic lights, and a problem presented itself when you have really efficient LED lights. You lose that incidental heating aspect, and you can get some blockage on the street lights. So they're looking into that as a problem. But you can review that student content. We have this for almost all elements. If we jump over there, almost all elements have some scored element examples. There's a few that don't, and I explicitly want to call out the last 2. M and N do not have any scored element examples because they're holistic elements about the whole process. You also won't see any student content loaded into M and N probably. Just because you're evaluating the rest of the portfolio as a whole for writing like an engineer and presentation. And so it's not any specific content for that specific element. So those 2, you won't see content, but you're still putting in a score. For any other element, if you don't see any content loaded, then the student should receive a score of 0. So that's sometimes we have cases where students just didn't submit anything for an element, and that means the score should be 0 for that element, except that M and N element here. So going back to A, we're still here. So maybe we think this is a score of 3. Oh, sorry, score of 3 here. Excuse me, I had a cough, so I wanted to mute that. So we thought this was a score of 3, not a 2, not a 4. We think it's a 3. By clicking this 3, we're actually not putting a score and assigning a score into the rubric here. So to actually submit the score, and jumping back to the analogy of a science fair project, we need to open up our score sheet or the clipboard with the pieces of paper to actually submit the score to the scorekeeper, which is a competition administrator in this case. So to open up the actual score sheet, we need to open up this blue pen icon on the bottom right-hand corner. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to find because if you have this open, the element A, it's a little covered. I have it in a stack for programmers to fix this, but I just want to point it out because we're not there yet. But it's covered here when you have an A, and then it's not covered if you come out here with your mouse. But to open up the score sheet, and regardless, you need to open up that pen icon. So this is only available to you when you are doing a review of a portfolio. You have the option to load in the score, and this is actually the score that you're assigning the portfolio. It starts out with a question mark because it's not assigned, and you also have the option to put in a comment. But before we put a comment, let's put our score 3. And then maybe at this point you might be a little bit unsure. If it's a score 3, you can click that little plus arrow. What that does is open up a window with that same rubric that's available on the right-hand sidebar. If you want to open up in this box and move it around, you can do that. And you can toggle maybe between a 2 and a 3 and a 2 and a 3 and to figure out what it's actually closer to and make up your mind there. It gets a little crowded sometimes if you have all this open, so you can click this X button to close that. So let's say we think this actually is a 3. And then we want to type in a comment. There's a couple ways that the comments can be used, and I want to make you aware of that before you actually do the commenting. The first one is potential feedback to students and teachers. So that's up to the discretion of the competition administrator about where the comments go. Typically what we see is that competition administrators like to provide the comments to the teacher. And what that does is allow them to make a teaching decision about whether it's a constructive thing to do to provide that to students in the case of the comments. So that's one place where your students could go, is potentially to teachers and students for feedback on their project. Another thing that comments may be used for is in cases where the scores are really, really tight between two portfolios. Competition administrator can go in and view the comments to see if the comments can push one portfolio above the other to finalize some scoring discrepancies and really close scores. The third way that your comments may be used is I mentioned the ongoing research about judge agreement. One of the methodologies that they use to research how close judges are in agreement is to take a look at the comments to see what aspects of the rubric that judges are focusing in on and kind of the justification for why the score is what they put the score in. It's because if two judges focus on different aspects in the rubric, they could come up with different scores. And so the researchers look at the comments to kind of gain an understanding of what you're thinking while you're putting your score in as well. So those are a couple different ways your comments can be used. So let's go ahead and put a comment in here. This is a comment. So we can just put that there and it's in there. Everything is saved automatically on the Innovation Portal. So if you notice there's no save button, every couple microseconds, the Innovation Portal is saving what you've clicked. So if we close this scoring sheet and then open it up again, it's still there. We have our comment and we have our score here. So let's go ahead and close the score sheet and go to the next element, B, that needs to be judged. So go up here, click the B, and again, we can look at the reflective questions here. We can close that window. We can take a look at the rubric for this element. Element B is documentation and analysis of prior solution attempts. And then we have scored element examples for B here as well down here that change every time we click a different score. But then again, we're not actually assigning a score by clicking here. We need to go to this blue pen icon, open that up to actually submit our score. Let's say the students did a little bit better on this one, got a score of 4, and then we can put another comment in here. Oh, here, typos. All right, so again, this is automatically saving every couple of microseconds, so there's no need to click a save button. So you'll repeat that for all the elements down here, going all the way down, and again, that takes about an hour if you're familiar with a rubric to go through all these elements and read through the student work. But and again, it could be a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on what content the students have actually loaded and how much you have to read. So once we're done with that, we've gone through all the elements. Now it's time to actually submit the scores to the competition administrator. And we're going to pretend like we did scores for the rest of these here. That's the button up here that says click complete review. So if we click that, we can open up the Amazon shopping cart page, is what I like to call it here. So this is like the are you sure question. We can view all the work that we've done. So for element A and B, we have scores loaded, a 3 and a 4. And we have our comments down here and here. If we haven't scored an element, we'll have a question mark, and so that's an indicator for you as a judge to go back and actually do that score. At this point, you can still go back and change any of your scores, and you can load any scores that you may have forgotten to do. And then if you didn't load any comments, it has a text here that says there are no comments for this element review. If we scroll all the way down, let's pretend like we have scores for all these question marks. And again, a question mark would be an indicator for you to go back and do that score. But let's go ahead, let's jump back to our science fair analogy. real quick here, and we have our score sheets on our clipboard, and those are just like pieces of paper in the physical world, but the analogy here is you've gone home, and now you need to mail those score sheets to the scorekeeper or the competition administrator. The first step, this is kind of like putting everything in the same envelope for the one portfolio. So this is one portfolio that you're judging, all these different scores. We need to put those in an envelope, and we need to put a stamp on it, and we need to send it in the mail, complete it. Once you click this button, you cannot change any of the scores for this portfolio. So this is the commitment button for this one review that you're doing, one portfolio, and this is like dropping in the mail. You can't get it back. You can't get those scores back. So let's go ahead and do that. Complete review, and again, this needs to be done by, I think it was June 15th, if my memory is good. That needs to be done. That button needs to be clicked for all of the portfolios by June 15th, and all the scores done. So I want to show you where we're at now. On the left hand.
This is the judging window is June 8th to July 15th.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been saying the wrong thing the whole time. July 15th.
So I don't want my judges out there panicking, thinking they only have a few days. They actually have almost 4 weeks.
All right. I am sorry about that. I will change that. July 15th. All right, so all the reviews done by July 15th. So you do have some time to do that, a few weeks there. But going back to here, we have the left-hand sidebar, the navigation bar here on the left. We're in My Reviews, which is not a button we looked at earlier. This is a summary of every single review that you have on your account that you've done. So if you've judged in the past, which I don't think anyone has here, you'll have some reviews from a past competition. And if you happen to have judged a different competition, your reviews will have been here if you're using the same account. So I've done 29 of 29 on this one account, and if you reviews 20 total, and you could filter by active or complete. If it's active, that means it's not done. If it's complete, it means you've done it. Green is good. So what was the name of the one we did? I think Reach a Tool is what we just did. So we can verify that it's complete here by this badge here. We can also go in and view that student content still. If we click that, this is the same portfolio. Again, our cover page, nothing, we didn't grade anything, nothing to evaluate. But if we go to A, we can see the same student content that was on this portfolio. But if you notice that blue button down in the bottom right is not there anymore, that pen icon, so that means you can't change the score. There's no score to actually load to it, but you can view the scores that you have done. So if we click on Review Summary, up here we can see the scores of a 3 and a 4 that we have completed and the comments that we loaded. So we can see and verify that we've actually completed this summary, completed this portfolio. And then if we wanted to go to the competition and go to the next one, left-hand sidebar, go to Opportunities, go to Past, and again the 2016 Wisconsin will be here in the Past button. You'll be looking for the 2016 Wisconsin competition. For this example, we're going into the training example. When that loads, we can click Reviews. And we can see that we have one more review accomplished. So we have 15 of 21 instead of 14 of 21 complete as a summary. And again, you won't have near that many portfolios. And then if we scroll down to look at the Reach a Tool, we can see that's complete. And then the next step as a judge is to go into the next active portfolio. The one that's not complete, we could go into this Creo one here and start evaluating there. But I want to pause for some questions. I have a little bit more about some resources that you'll be receiving. But I want to pause for any questions. All right. Let me click through this, go to my last slide here. One back. All right, you'll be receiving 3 documents and a link to the YouTube video of this training. The first one is a PDF step-by-step guide for judges. It's kind of like a click-through how-to to actually just get access to the portfolios. Pretty just procedural click through about how to actually find the competition and do some judging here. You'll also receive reflective questions, kind of a summary of the rubric, reflective questions for each element, the 14 elements, and what a score of 5 looks like for that element. To give you an idea, you can scan through that. You'll also be receiving a complete copy of the EDPPSR rubric. The reason you're receiving that after training is because it's a fairly large document. It's all that text on the right-hand side that's embedded into the Innovation Portal, just in a PDF format. And for preparation, you don't need to read that all the way through or anything. You can read it as you're evaluating and kind of coming to a conclusion about student work. But we provide the PDF because some judges like to open it up on another monitor that they have while they're evaluating student work, or maybe print it out and have it available so they don't have to use the right-hand sidebar. But it's just an optional thing you can use if you want to, if it's more convenient for you to do that. But you'll be receiving these 3 documents and a link to the YouTube video. And with that, I want to just say thank you for judging. I hope we've given you a good context for the impact you're having with students. I know on a virtual platform sometimes that doesn't come through completely clear, but as being judges in this competition, you're providing and enabling so much student recognition and the opportunity for students to be recognized and really get their work outside the classroom. And your role and my role is just kind of to enable that to happen for students. And so I just want to say thank you, because without being a physical event, we don't get very many opportunities to say thank you. So thank you. And with that, I will turn it back over to Patricia.
And I ditto that. I want to thank all of you for stepping up and being new virtual judges for the 2016 competition. Like Elliot said, we'll be sending out those 4 documents to you, or 3 documents and a link. Elliot and I will be distributing the submissions on June 7th, so they will be in your bucket ready to go on June 8th. And if you could have those finished by July 15th, that would be very helpful to us. Again, I would ask that you judge the portfolios based on how well the team has completed the elements of the rubric, not on the idea or the problem. And past judges, just a couple of things. They have suggested considering judging all of your portfolios before submitting the final score. And then, because if you submit them as you go, there's no turning back. But if you wait and submit them at the end of when you're judging, then you can go back and change some of your scores if that's what you choose. Other judges have gone through and judged element A on all portfolios and then moved on to B and so forth. And they have found that to be helpful in being consistent in judging. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact myself or Elliot. And I can't say thank you enough for stepping up and making this connection with our students. Any other questions for me? If not, thank you very much for your time.